Morning and welcome to today's edition of Avero Live. I'm AV. I'm the founder and CEO at Avero. We are an independent third-party consulting firm that work with local governments across the country, helping them modernize their operations. And as we do that, obviously today we have to talk about AI and what that means for uh, small to medium and even larger agencies across the country. My guest today is Gerald Happel. He's the CIO at Van Buren County in Michigan, and we got connected on LinkedIn, which is where I live, and seems like Jerry does too, because his thoughts on AI and data sovereignty caught my attention, and we got to chatting and saying the same words to each other. So thought we would bring him on and have him spread the word. Jerry, welcome to the show.
Well, it's great to be here. It's good to talk about AI and small local governments because I very rarely get to talk about AI in small local governments because most of my peers aren't talking about the same types of things I'm talking about. So this is going to be fun.
It is. So let before we get into that, tell us about a little bit about yourself, and where you started your career and how you find yourself in this unique position.
Well, I have a GIS background. I got into GIS right out of college, way back in the late '80s, early '90s, and for about 20 years, I ran my own GIS consultant company, um, providing GIS services to local governments throughout the Midwest and really throughout most of the country. Um, After 20 years of that, I was pretty burnt out, and I took a few years off. And I thought, well, I need to do something new. So a local government a GIS director position came up. I thought, well, I can do that. And so I jumped in on the opposite side from what I had been doing for 20 years, which was really fun because you'd like to be able to make change in local government. And as a vendor or a consultant on the outside, you're limited by what you can do. But when you're working from the inside out, you can really affect some good change. And so it's been a real fun journey here for about 10 years now. So
That's amazing, and amazing because I think you're the second CIO I know that's gone up the ranks through the GIS route, and to me it seems like a natural connector. So how did but CIOs are expected to have deep network or software knowledge. Like, tell me how you bridge the gap between GIS and what you're doing now.
well, it's interesting that you refer to me as a CIO. I think you're the first person to refer to me as a CIO. Uh, what happened was, when we all had our ChatGPT moment, which I can't
Yeah.
believe is almost 4 years ago now for
Hmm.
most of us. I quickly realized that, man, if this continues, this is going to be something that could revolutionize local government, and realized really quickly that, I was probably the only person in our local government that was thinking that way in the GIS department. We've got a
Hmm.
great IT team in both counties that I'm working in. But let's face it, IT and certainly in small local governments, they're focused on security, they're focused on
Hmm.
networks, they're focused on hardware, and really not focused on AI and innovation and those types of things. And so I went to my administration and said, hey, we need to pay attention to AI, we need to pay attention to automation, we need to pay attention to data analytics, we need to pay attention to all this technology and all these things that are coming out, and local governments aren't for a large part. And I don't want to say that about all local governments, but certainly most small and rural local governments aren't thinking about these things. And for me, I was lucky because we had a very forward-looking uh, council, very forward-looking administration, and who put a lot of trust in me and said, "Yeah, let's do this." And so what we ended up actually doing is we took our GIS departments and we actually evolved them into what we call the digital information departments. And so instead of just doing GIS, we took on the role of the integrators of AI within local government, the integrators of analytics, and the integrators of automation, and really built out a new department, a new services area within local government, and that's been phenomenal. We've been able to do some things in our small governments that nobody else is doing, and I'm pretty proud of that.
So what was that department called, and what are you called if you're not the CIO?
Uh, you know, Titles are meaning less and less in today's environment. I'm just the director of the information department, of the digital information department.
Hmm.
Uh, One of the things that is kind of unique about our situation is we realized pretty early on that the skills that we needed in local government to really dive into AI uh, head first weren't your typical skill set you're going to find in a small local government, and that the only way we were really going to be able to do this was to join forces with our neighboring uh, communities.
Hmm.
And so we started a regional program, which we call DICE, which is the Digital Innovation Collaborative Exchange. And what that essentially is we're sharing our capacity, we're sharing our department across 2 counties right now, with the intent that that will grow in time to incorporate additional counties, additional cities in our region. And by teaming up, we were able to, combine resources to add some of the capacity we needed to do some of the things that we're doing. So I'm actually the digital information director for 2 counties, which includes GIS, AI, automation, all those fun things. So that's really interesting.
It's interesting and it's hard to pull off because political subdivisions, right? And a lot of regionalization happened when the broadband boom was going on, just in
Mhm.
the COVID era, and it still is. And what I realized is it doesn't work unless the neighboring counties are friendly politically, see the world the same way, are willing to share resources and success and failure. So kudos to you on pulling that off. I know there's other people involved, but regional government, especially in IT, is really, really hard to pull off.
Yeah, I mean, we have the precedent for that. I mean, we have the regional planning commissions, we have
Yep.
regional economic development folks, and we have in Michigan, we have in other states we have the extension service, the agricultural extension,
Hmm.
which is the same idea where we're pooling resources and sharing them across jurisdictions. And so we really modeled ourselves after those types of organizations. And as we continue to grow, I'm hoping we have a bigger footprint, which will give us additional capacity to do even more new things. So we're pretty excited about that. And we've been in communication with a lot of other counties in our region. They're watching us very closely. I think some of those will probably join our group as time goes on here.
I think it should be watched nationally because smaller counties or cities wanting to take on AI is a big undertaking. Like you said, you don't have the folks. And two, my take is there's we're not there yet in terms of understanding of what it is in the first place, right? You're up against giant marketing machines, and to me, it is a marketing race than it is a technology race. But it's giving us a this opportune moment to talk about the basics of technology that you have to take care of, without which you won't be able to take advantage of AI. So, what's your general take and philosophy on uh, the state of the industry and the markets, and how ready government agencies are to take advantage of AI?
Local government, small local government is completely unprepared for what's coming. And uh, I say that not just kind of off the cuff, but I say that after spending the last 2 or 3 years diving deep into this technology from a local government perspective. And it's not anything that is, because it's magic technology. The issue is your data. If you don't have good, solid, clean, machine readable data, you're not in a situation where your AI is going to be as useful as it should be, and it's going to make mistakes. It's going to hallucinate. It doesn't matter what your vendor tells you. That's the reality of it. And we learned that early on. And we're going through making great pains right now to prepare ourselves for the eventuality of AI playing a huge role in our counties. And so we're spending a lot of time right now preparing our data, cleaning our data, developing, RAG systems and vector databases and all of that in local government, because I think that's really where it belongs. I
Hmm.
think that that layer of information is something that local governments are going to have to get a lot smarter about, and understanding why that's important, and really owning that capacity in house. And this is a great opportunity to talk about that and what that means. So I'm super excited to be here today.
Yeah, thank you. So let's dive in. So I think you're talking about the latest buzzword around us, right? Data sovereignty. And to me, it is, do you how do you get over this hurdle when local governments, especially smaller ones, have legacy infrastructure, legacy data, and you're being pitched, give us your data, we'll suck it up into the cloud, and then we will give you access to your own data. And then you can use our AI products to do whatever you want with it. So several things I can think of that are impediments to you using your own data, no matter what the contract says. How do you see that? And what does data sovereignty mean to you?
What you're talking about is probably the number one issue that I'm focused on right now is data sovereignty. And it goes beyond data. And for all the AI folks that are high tech and know AI from a very technical perspective, forgive me if I butcher everything here, but I try to explain AI to my decision makers in a way that they can understand. And I have to use terminology, and that's part of our problem. We don't have a nomenclature for we're not using the same language for the same concepts throughout the AI space right now, especially in local government, which is a little frustrating. When I look at AI in local government, I look at three layers. We have the data layer. That's all of our files, that's all of our PDFs, that's all of our databases in local government. And we own all that. There's no data sovereignty issue there. We own our data. We know what our data is. Then you have a second layer, which is really the semantic layer or the reasoning layer. This is where you're using all of your data to convert that into a format that's machine readable, that the AI can learn, that the AI can reason over. I call that the knowledge layer. That's where your vector databases reside. That's where your RAG systems reside, and your graph RAGs and your knowledge graphs. All of that I call the knowledge layer. And then you have your third layer on top of that, which is your intelligence layer, right? That's your AIs.
Mm-hmm.
So your AIs are tapping into your knowledge layer, which is the vector stores and all those things, to really reason over your data. So there's three layers. There's the data, there's the knowledge layer, and then there's the intelligence layer, which is really becoming a commodity. That intelligence is becoming a commodity. And
Yep.
that middle layer is the piece that most local government folks just don't understand. And they don't even understand it exists, let alone why it's important.
Mm-hmm.
So when your vendor comes in and says, well, give us all your data, give us your first layer, we'll generate the second layer, which is the most important layer, because that's how your AI thinks about your county. That's how your AI understands and reasons about your county. And let us fuse that with our product. So our product is the only product you can use that information in. That is the worst vendor lock-in that local government will probably ever see. If you're concerned about vendor lock-in in your ERP systems, if you're concerned with vendor lock-in in your GIS systems, that's nothing compared to the vendor lock-in local government is going to experience in the age of AI if you allow vendors to control the knowledge layer. And so what I'm telling my decision makers is the knowledge layer is the infrastructure of the intelligence age. We need to treat the knowledge layer as infrastructure, as owned by local government and controlled and governed by local government, not something that sits inside of a vendor's product. If we own and control that knowledge layer, we can plug any AI into it we want to. A vendor can have a great system, we can plug into it. We can plug ChatGPT straight into it. We can plug any AI solutions we want into our layer, but that layer remains embedded in local government, controlled by local government, owned by local government. So that's the message I'm really trying to get out to folks right now. The problem is, how do we do that? How
Mm-hmm.
does the local government manage that layer? How does the local government build that layer? I think there's room for vendors to play in that space, where vendors can come in and help us build that layer, help us build the RAG, help us build the vectors and the databases and the knowledge graphs and all the things that go with it. But at the end of the day, that belongs to us, not to them. And that's my biggest message I'm trying to get across to not only my own decision makers, but I'm sharing that philosophy with everybody else that will even
Mm-hmm.
listen to me right now.
No, and I agree with you because the what you said is the commoditization of intelligence, especially every day that you get more and more advanced models and you get open source products that can actually orchestrate the automations for you. Now it becomes, how do you, again, get clean, not maybe not pristine but usable data within your infrastructure, to be useful to those agents and that automation. And a lot of times, smaller agencies have the infrastructure problem, right? They're trying to get away from 20-year-old infrastructure. They don't have the funding or the planning to spend a couple of millions on setting up data centers. So the easy answer becomes moving it to the cloud. So, in your experimentations or thinking about this, uh, how do you think about how do you keep data sovereign, control over it, while taking advantage of cloud services or um, keeping your data elsewhere? Because sovereignty doesn't necessarily mean you keep it in house or in
Right.
your data centers, right? There's other ways of doing this. So, what's your latest thinking on the infrastructure angle?
Well, I mean, we're using, a little bit of AWS and
Hmm.
the Google infrastructure for providing, hosting and storing our data.
Right.
We that still gives us control over it. We can
Hmm.
use vendors and outside sources for that type of thing, and we're doing that right now. We're, like you mentioned, like most small local governments, strapped with 20-year-old software that run our ERP systems here. And how do we tap into that? How do we organize all that? Right now, basically out of necessity, we're essentially creating a mirror of our existing databases to play with and keeping that completely separate from everything else that's happening here at the county. Mainly because this is such new technology, we're still figuring out how to do it, and we don't want to make the critical mistake of a hacker getting through our system
Hmm.
and tearing things up. So we're keeping everything separate, at least for now. And yeah, we can certainly use lots of other external resources and still have control of all that. But that's the important part. We need to have control. It has to be transparent. We have to be able to control it and understand it, see what it's doing. Because we have to deal with things like FOIA, and we have
Yep.
to deal with things like transparency, and we have to deal with things like how is your zoning ordinance being chunked? Is it being done correctly? So there's just a lot of learning here in the local government space that's one of the things we're focused on, so that we're not ignorant of the right questions to ask when vendors come knocking.
So let's dive in a little more on that, because I'm assuming you're on a legacy ERP platform which hosts most of your data, right? And then you have
Yeah,
a
we are. I
GIS
don't know if
layer.
I want
What
to talk about.
I know, but like clients hire us to figure this out, right? Where do you even begin? It's the Christmas light syndrome. Like when you take it off the shelf, is it gonna work? Where do I start pulling? And to us, it's the major sources of data or stores of data. It's the ERP, it's the GIS, it's your tax collection systems. These there are major sources or stores of data. Where do you begin to even unravel this? And so tell us, you're a little bit down the road on figuring that out. How did you do this?
Well, I mean, because I have a GIS background, and because I'm confident GIS is going to have a huge role to play in the AI deployments in the coming years. We really started there, um, and we have ways to extract for GIS a lot of the information out of our ERPs, and it's all manual, and it's all stuff you have to do periodically by hand, which is just horrendous. But that's what we're stuck with in small local
Hmm.
governments, right? And so we really started with the GIS components, and how can we build um, AI integrated GIS focused solutions. And that's where a lot of our prototypes are. That's a lot of the things that we're doing. And so that's been very eye opening to actually see what is possible when you successfully integrate large language models into a GIS system. That opens up a lot of doors, and we're really excited about that.
Well, and I think when you start thinking about the end state of what a large language model can do to a GIS data set, I think working backwards, you also realize how unready your data sets are to take advantage of modern solutions. And then so there's a back and forth in that too. How do you change your end state, or do you just dig in and fix it today? Because the other story too is that the LLMs can read unstructured data. Yeah, they can, but the learning curve is much harder.
Yeah, unstructured data is, and we're working through all these issues and have some experience in that now, which is invaluable to us because those are the types of things that if you don't understand how to convert your unstructured data into a structured format that AI can really take advantage of, those are the types of things that a lot of the vendors are saying, "Oh, let us do that for you now," and you don't need to know how to do that. Well, yes, you do need to
Hmm.
know how to do that. I'm sorry, especially when it comes down to things that are law ordinances
Yeah.
and like I said, zoning ordinance earlier is the one that we've been working on a lot right now. You need to understand how that's being ingested into an AI system so that you can verify that it's being ingested correctly. Because if it's being ingested incorrectly, if it's being chunked up incorrectly, or the vectors are not what they should be, the AI is going to answer incorrectly. And
Hmm.
so it's really fundamental that you make sure that that data gets ingested into your AI system correctly. And so we really focus a lot on those types of things, making sure that we've got good clean data, making sure as we get it into either some sort of database like Postgres or PostGIS, or
Hmm.
get it into some Markdown or JSON, and actually check, especially our really important unstructured data like zoning ordinances, and make sure that that's done correctly. And if you're not doing that, if you're just handing it off to a vendor, you really have no idea if that stuff is being ingested correctly or not until your AI answers a question incorrectly for some citizen, and all of a sudden you're getting an upset person on the phone. So we're trying to head off those things by managing all that stuff in house.
So have you come close to any sort of end use case? What are you tackling through all of this hard work? What is the practical use that your staff or citizens might see
Well, I
soon?
mean, yeah, customer service is obviously the I think one of the premier places AI can help right now.
Yeah.
We released an AI driven chatbot on our website 2 years ago now. So
Wow.
this isn't something we started yesterday. I mean, we've got 2 years of experience running these things, and um, they're frankly can be quite amazing. Um, we track our. We live here in Van Buren County. That's where I'm sitting today. Our AI on our website is called Marty AI after Martin Van Buren. So when I say Marty, you're talking about my
I got it.
chatbot.
Yeah.
So Marty went up a couple years ago, and when he first went up, we trained him on our website. We trained him on a bunch of our data. Um, and we found right away that he would answer a lot of questions very well, but a lot of questions he would struggle with. And then we realized that because our data and our website was a bit of a mess, Marty was a bit of a mess. I
Hmm.
mean, if your website is not clean and you train your data or you train your chatbot on your website, you're going to get conflicting information, and your chatbot's going to give conflicting information, which is not what you want. We actually, because of that, a year ago, we brought our website in house. We rebuilt our entire website. We had ADA compliance coming up. So we thought, well, now's the time. Let's rebuild our website. But we built it with AI in mind.
Hmm.
And so when we brought it in house and then retrained our chatbot on it, the answers went from pretty good to basically phenomenal and really grounded in our data. So not a lot of hallucinations, not a lot of bad information being sent out. And I think Marty answers something around 10,000 questions a year. And for a big community, 10,000 questions might be something that
Yeah.
your chatbot would answer in a month. But for us, 10,000 a year is pretty good in a small community. And that really reduces the amount of calls that are coming in and of the amount of people that are coming in. And the quality of the answers that we're getting out of Marty are phenomenal. And we couldn't be happier at this point. So, but quite frankly, if you buy an off the shelf uh, product from some vendors, and I know this because one of our neighboring counties did that, you'll spend a lot of money for an inferior bot. Um, I've gone out and tested some of the vendors' bots, and just some of them are fine, and some of them are not great. And because the local people in those counties that are buying those inferior solutions don't know the right questions to ask because they just don't understand what they need to be asking. And
Hmm.
so it's been very interesting.
And you built this on your own? Did you?
So
Tell me about the
originally,
stack.
originally we used a little piece of software out there called Chatbase. I
Hmm.
don't know if you're familiar with it. They've been around for a while, um, and it's worked phenomenally well for us. Now they have a nice back end, and the knowledge sovereignty that we're talking about here, this is where I really learned about it, because we're uploading information into that chatbot, right? We're having that chatbot trained on our website, but suddenly we don't have the fruits of that labor. The Marty, the chatbot, is great, but if we want any other chatbot, if we want to tap into that knowledge in any other way, we can't, because that's owned by Chatbase. Now, I don't have a problem with Chatbase; they're very affordable, a very good product, and we continue to use them, but that's what really got us onto this. Hey, we need to control that. We need to be able to build our own chatbots or build our own automations that draw on that information. Right now, that's all locked into the chat-based
Hmm.
interface. Let's build that ourselves. And since we've been building that ourselves, we are now building our own chatbots internally, that we have much more control over, and that's where we're really heading in the future.
So, controversial statement here I'm going to make is custom development coming back with a vengeance.
Absolutely. I mean, for better or for worse, it's coming, and I
Yeah.
think we just need to be ready for that. Claude Code and all of the capabilities that come with that, and similar products have unlocked the ability for those folks that are knowledgeable about coding to be super, super efficient and build apps internally that we would never had any business building a long time
Hmm.
ago. Um, with that comes a lot of, with great power comes great responsibility, right, Spider-Man? So
Hmm.
uh, we're aware of the dangers of that and are trying really hard to document what we're doing. And if we have turnover or staff leave, we're not going to be lost with a custom system that nobody understands. But yeah, that is the future.
Yeah, and the speed which you can iterate, right? The barrier to custom development has been the cost and talent, and the tools you mentioned, Cloud Code or Codex, or hundreds of ones out there that you can just go build apps on. The downsides are, yeah, you're going back to custom development in its worst form, was where you had a custom system running that no one knew how it was built or how to fix it. And that's the problem to solve. The second one is you don't need an army of developers anymore. You have two people in your department. And
That's right. Yeah,
how
we're
do you,
doing this for two counties, and it's me and two other people at this point. So it's not, and we have day jobs. I mean, we have other
yeah.
responsibilities, the
Oh, yeah.
typical things that you have to do in local government. And so a lot of what we're doing is, uh, the way we're able to do this is that we take what we're learning and we apply it to our own jobs first.
Hmm.
So when I started this, I was the GIS director in St. Joseph County, which is the neighboring county, and I'm still the DID director there. But I essentially early on learned how to basically automate my way out of a job. Now that was even before AI came on the scene, just by using uh, some of the automation tools that are out there right now. We streamlined so much of what we were doing that it freed up so much of my time that I was able to start diving into other technologies. I wasn't spending all my time getting my GIS tasks done. I had plenty of other time to do other things because we were automating things. And we took that philosophy into our broader departments now, that we learn all this stuff on our own workflows to make
Hmm.
ourselves more efficient, which frees up more time that we can then take on all these other responsibilities and make everyone else more efficient as well. And so that's been a winning strategy for us. We can do much more with a team of two or three than 3 or 4 years ago I could have done with a team of 5 or 6. When I was a consultant, I ran basically a GIS application development company that had 20 employees. And now with two or three good people, you can do more than I could have done, 10 years or 15 years ago with 20 employees easily.
Is there a scale to this? Meaning, smaller counties, you have a lot of control over infrastructure. You seem like a convincing person that people will fund ideas to. Uh, Bigger counties, bigger organizations, is it the same? Because I was talking to some agency the other day. They have 400 employees, 75 IT staff using legacy systems. Now, what's the future? Because 75 people running the way that you do can create so much scale and so much um, automation and take things in house. But that's not necessarily reality there, because You're up against legacy, not just technologies, but legacy way of thinking, legacy management, and applying, staffing to people ratios that don't make sense anymore.
Uh, if you have a crystal ball, it's better than my crystal ball. I would love to
I
talk
don't.
about it. It's hard for me to imagine where this is all heading. Um, and it's important to say that out loud in front of our staff and in front of our people here. And we have early on we adopted AI policies. I'm sure we were one of the first local governments, certainly small local governments, to have an AI policy. But right in there it says, our intent is not to eliminate people. Our intent is to augment our staff, to make our staff better, to make you more efficient, to make it so that you can do your job easier. And we had to say those types of things up front and be honest about it, because otherwise we weren't going to get our staff to participate. I think your point about 75 local IT people with the power of AI behind them can both be very powerful and very chaotic.
Hmm.
Um, One of the things in local government and small local government where I am, we are basically all generalists, because we have, even in the IT department, everybody has to know how to do everything. When you get into larger jurisdictions, you have a lot of specialists,
Yeah.
people who specialize in doing one type of thing. And I think I'm trying to figure out what that means in terms of AI, because, for us, we can't even begin to think about replacing a job or replacing anything else, because that one person does so many things. We can help them use AI or use automation to do specific tasks that maybe in a larger organization, that specific task was actually a role or actually a job.
Yeah.
Um, but it's really also empowering, because in a small organization like ours, like you say, scale is much different, and our databases are much smaller. We can grasp the totality of our entire ERP, whereas in a big organization that might not be possible. And that gives us a lot more flexibility. That gives us a lot more. We can be a lot more nimble than in a larger organization. So yeah, it's a good question. I don't know what the future is going to bring.
Yeah. Well, let's take an audience question. Robert Bell is asking about in general, your opinion on the difference between chatbots versus AI agents. And according to him, chatbots are great for directing someone to a task, whereas agents are built to actually execute the transaction. Do you think blurring those two concepts is causing confusion for organizations trying to build a real AI strategy? Thanks, Robert.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree 100%, because most organizations just aren't that knowledgeable about, they don't keep up with AI the way certainly I do, and I'm sure the way
Hmm.
you do, and a lot of folks listening here. And it is blurring the line between, the use of a chatbot as a digital assistant. A digital assistant is something that we're very proactive on helping our staff learn how to use AI to help them do their jobs better. We'll also provide automations and AI enabled automations sometimes to help them do their jobs better. But we've really shied away from diving headlong into the agentic AI within local government, because that danger, Will Robinson. I mean, that this is an area where uh, I think unless you're ready, I don't really think it's probably prudent for local government to dive in quite yet. We're going to get there, but there's a lot of work to be done before we get there. I think diving into agentic AI before you take care of your data, build your knowledge base, and gain some proficiency just managing AI in general is probably not very smart. And so we'll get there. We're going to let the technology mature a little bit before we get there. We're going to let security and catch up a little bit before we get there with agentic AI, but it's certainly on our horizon. We play with it in our sandboxes, but not
Hmm.
something we're going to cut loose just yet.
Yeah, and we talked about OpenClaw a little bit earlier today, which is just one of the many open source, things you can set up and run your organization on. I don't believe 90% of the YouTube videos out there that have automated all of their life using OpenClaw, but it begs the question: is that the future? When you talk about data sovereignty and taking control of your own data and destiny, uh, like you've built the chatbot, which is the lower end of the application stack. But do you see something like that being useful to especially smaller governments that don't have the staff or a heavy lift, right? Building some agentic workforce of your own that can run workflows for you.
I think it is in the future. I think it is something we will look at some point. Um, but local governments, as you know, have some constraints we have to play within. I mean, we do
Yeah.
have FOIA, so any type of thing that the agent is going to be doing has to be documented. We have to have logs to track every decision that's being made, and so that plays into it. And frankly, I don't even know how that plays into it because that hasn't been tested in the courts yet. So we need to take those types of things into consideration, and transparency are other things that we need to see what's happening with the agent. And so none of this stuff can happen in a black box in local government, which is something to consider when you're talking to your vendors. We are accountable for what happens here, and we have to understand how it's happening and why it's happening. And with the agentic stuff right now, we just don't. And until we can answer some of those hard questions, I don't see smart, prudent local governments getting too far down the agentic trail until we tackle some of those issues.
Well, and it also brings me to current thought is each deployment of AI, anything is its own implementation. Be it chatbot, agentic, any reporting type of AI, you still have to go through these steps. So when it's being sold to you as a plug and play, I mean, I've seen vendors at conferences saying, you don't need IT. You don't even need an IT lift for this. Just plug this in. It's going to work for you. Uh, it raises eyebrows, right? So do you agree, disagree on my statement that each AI deployment is its own implementation?
Oh, absolutely. And that's how we treat it here as well. Um, it is absolutely its own implementation, and there is not a one size fits all solution with AI, and I don't think there's going to be for quite a long time. Anybody who tells you different is selling you snake oil, and I'll get pushback on that, but that's how I feel about it. I think there are some wonderful vendors out there that are very forward thinking and very helpful, and would be good partners to work with. But I also think there are a lot of them out there that tack AI onto whatever service they were offering before and saying, "Oh, this is the solution." And
Hmm.
I think, and again, part of the reason I'm so active now on LinkedIn and getting kind of trying to get the word out of what we're discovering, what we're learning here, is to help my peers and other communities not make those bad decisions. Don't have a knee-jerk reaction to a vendor and just go with them because they've got a bright shiny toy to play with. Really dig into it and understand what you're getting into and what you're locking into long term, and what problems you're going to face in the future if you do go with them. And so, to the vendors out there, I'd say, be transparent, be very clear on where who owns your knowledge layer. Is that something you control? Is that something the county controls? And how that all works, because um, that's going to be so critical, I think, in the years to come, for local governments to understand that. So it's super important. I'm trying to spread the word on all that.
Yeah, me too. And I think we're saying the same, speaking the same language here, which is why we're talking here. I think it's really important to understand the end state and how do you work backwards. And in that sense, it's not different. This is still implementation speak. It's still, you can't just go get an ERP in the cloud if your network stack is from 2002. If you don't have an ISP or a failover ISP or the right speeds, you're just not going to get there. So doing the grunt work of making sure your data is pristine and in shape and usable, and two, having mapped out the end state is extremely important. Even a small implementation like, I'm not saying small, but small in the grand scheme of things, like a chatbot. I'm sure you guys did a lot of mapping. How is this going to work? What data source is this chatbot going to pull from? Is that pristine? And it wasn't in your case, right? Working backwards, you found out that a lot of fundamental groundwork had to be done to take advantage of it.
Yeah, and that was eye opening. That's where we really learn by implementing a chatbot, which is a very basic at this point. You learn a lot. You understand doing it yourself internally is not really particularly difficult. But you can learn so much by doing it that you suddenly realize there's a much bigger job ahead
Hmm.
for a more holistic AI implementation for the whole county. And so, if anybody's on the fence about, if you're working for a local government, you're on the fence about implementing some sort of simple chat bot for customer service, I'd say go for it. I mean, you can put it up and take it down if you need to, but you're
Yeah.
going to learn so much about what AI is and what's really important to AI and important to your implementation, that I would, certainly encourage folks to give it a try. If you go the right route, it's not particularly expensive. Even if you're getting your feet wet with something like we did with something like Chatbase, I would highly encourage local governments to do that, because again, that's your window into how all this works.
Yeah, and as a pilot, right? That's the other problem I'm seeing. The pilots aren't designed for results. What hypotheses are you testing with this pilot, and how are you
So
designing it, and how do you get out of it?
yeah, that's exactly right. We've got a great pilot going on right now. Let me explain it to you, because it was doing some magical things for us the other day that really blew my mind. We're building an application that we hope to deploy regionally here, which is basically a AI enabled zoning assistant for the public,
Hmm.
which is a huge pain point in local governments, especially in Michigan, because in Michigan, every township and village maintains their own zoning codes. And so within my county, one county, I have 28 different zoning ordinances within my county. And if you are a developer or a citizen, that is a huge, huge pain for you. So we built a zoning bot that is linked with the GIS. So on one screen, there are three panels. One panel is the GIS map, one panel is the chat bot, and one panel is the zoning ordinance. So we're bringing in the zoning ordinances, we're bringing them to a RAG system, we're chunking them up very effectively and very carefully about how we're doing that and building that out. And then we're training the chatbot on the zoning ordinance and all the other related information to that. And then we're linking it into the GIS, which has parcel level data, ownership information, valuations, all those types of things that you would find in typical parcel data, plus the zoning information. And then I set it all up and I said to it, hey, just like this, this was my prompt. My name is Jerry. I live on McClish Road. Can I have a zebra? That's all I asked it. And the AI comes back, well, I searched through all the owners that on McClish Road, and I found a Jerry or Gerald Happel, and your zoning is rural residential, and you can have a horse or something similar, and zebra would fall into that category. Now, I didn't say this is my parcel number. I didn't say this is my full name. I didn't say this is my address. I didn't say anything like that. The AI was able to reason over all the information we had given it and come back with an amazing and correct answer to that question. And so, we see moments like that where the AI is grounded in local data, so we're not getting hallucinations. The data is prepared very carefully for use and ingestion in that, and then it's linked to other data that can, in the GIS, where it can do some amazing things, and the results are phenomenal. Now that's our pilot we've got set up, our proof of concept. Now the hard part comes is, making that a product and going that last mile from
Hmm.
pilot to product, where we've looked at all the edge cases and we've tried to be smart about all the ways it can fail silently and all those things. That's more of a problem that we're finding right now, and we'll probably be adding some staff to help us do just that, is go from pilot to product. And so we're really excited about that one in particular. That one's going to be, I think, very, very, very useful for our local units.
That sounds great. I think the more difficult part is finding a zebra. Now that you can have
Yeah,
one.
exactly. Exactly.
Let's take an audience question. So, Megan Happel. Huh.
I know
Besides,
her.
do you? This sounds like a planted question, but here we go. Besides Marty, what do you think has been the coolest or most useful application of AI in your counties? What applications are on the horizon once your data is ready? I think you mentioned one. Is there anything else?
Yeah, I mean, and then there's the I think the most useful ones that we're doing are the ones that are frankly the least glamorous. I mean, just we're setting up all of our meeting spaces to automatically record the meetings if you want them recorded, just audibly, not video, and then it will automatically generate the transcript. the meeting minutes, the meeting summary, and send that to all of the attendees at the meeting automatically. So those types of simple tools that are going to save some staff person, a couple of hours every time it happens. And you know how many meetings local governments have,
Mhm.
that's a big time savings. And so I wouldn't say those are our coolest things, but those are the simple types of applications we're using AI for that have a big impact. And to me, that's cool.
Jerry, before we wrap up, I'm going to ask some career type questions because a lot of our listeners are early career. A lot of people are wondering what happens to their career paths and jobs with AI on the horizon. If you could talk to your 20-year-old self, what would you tell him or her, or him rather? Sorry.
I would embrace this technology because it's not going to go away. Um, it's only going to get better. The common saying, "This is the worst it's ever going to get," and I think that's true. Uh, I've been through this before. In the early days of GIS and local government, I was on that frontier when that was coming out, and being able to dive into this technology now, embrace it, understand it at fundamental levels, and not just how to make a prompt, but understand what that prompt is doing and understand how that AI is accessing and using databases and all those types of things. And then I would tell myself to dive into Codex or Claude Code a little bit, at least understand it, be able to do something in it. Um, because frankly, I don't know if AI is going to take your job in local government, but I know that somebody using AI just might take your job in local government. And so be that person using AI, not the person who's got their head in the sand.
Yeah, and I'd add that it's not too late. It's just so early. This is so early because every day there's a new product or a new model that comes and blows the other ones out of the water. That you are super early in this whole evolution, and there's so much to learn.
Yeah, not only super early everything is changing so fast that you, even if you were an early one, you still have to constantly be learning and
Yeah.
understanding what these changes are and what that means to something that you were doing 6 months ago may be out of date because new technology is here today to totally change things. So yeah, now's the time to jump in. Don't be bashful about doing that.
Right. And so, Jerry, if people want to contact you, talk to you, where would they find you?
Well, you can find me on LinkedIn, obviously. It's funny. I used to be on LinkedIn a long time ago, but I only came back to LinkedIn about a year ago, and it's been a wild ride since I came back. Um, so it's been a lot of fun. So contact me at LinkedIn, Gerald Happel on LinkedIn with Van Buren, St. Joseph County. You can contact me via email at hoppelg@vanburencountymi.gov. And I would be happy and thrilled to talk to anybody about AI and local government AI and where we're headed. And the whole reason I came back to LinkedIn was to find other folks in local government that were trying to do the same things I'm doing. And that has been surprisingly difficult, especially at the small local government level. Lots of folks at the higher levels in the bigger cities and bigger counties, but mid-size and small, there's just not a lot of people out there doing this right now. And so we need to get them on board.
Absolutely. And I truly believe that smaller counties and organizations are much better positioned to take advantage of this AI revolution. So thanks for sharing your thoughts, Jerry. We'll do this again. We'll have to do part 2, 3, and 4. But but before we log off here, I want to give the audience a couple of nuggets to take home with them. First, and this is me announcing my book. I posted about it the other day, but it'll be out in the spring of this year. We're putting final touches on it. But if you want to go sign up for an early signed copy, only limited editions available of that. The QR code's on your screen. Please check it out. It's got some great information on how to do modernization, not just AI. And it all comes back to doing the dirty work that is not as glamorous or sexy, and how do you set up your teams for success. So I'm excited about this, and I hope you take advantage of that. The second thing I want to give out is we just came up with a government AI navigator. So we took all of the products being offered in the market. We put him on a quadrant. We didn't get paid for any of that, unlike other quadrants. But these are our thoughts on how they fit. Either ease of use, are you getting locked in, or are you ready? And all this is available on our website. But I'm gonna throw the QR code. Please check it out. Jerry, with that, we will wrap up, and I would love to have you on here again. So we'll stay in touch. Uh,
I would
Thank
love
you.
to